Okay, welcome back. This is our second interview as part of Carter G's Road to Recovery. Again, I'm Adam Morrow. We're joined by somebody who's been mentioned in Carter's original interview. I've thrown his name around a little bit. Carter's thrown his name around a little bit. And as we said, you guys are going to hear more about him the farther we progress into Carter's rehab, and that's Pichi Balet. So here we go with Pichi. We're finally sitting down with him, getting an interview. Pichi has been handling Carter's rehab from a high performance perspective, but he can definitely explain it better than I can. So we can really just kick it off with Pichi. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and how'd you get involved with this whole process?
I'm a former professional athlete per se. I played a little bit professional baseball. Got lucky to make that journey. One thing I learned about professional baseball or collegiate baseball in general is that the athletes are pretty big, pretty physical dudes. So from a young age, I really started studying a lot of bodybuilding principles. So what I mean by that is I got lucky. My dad was Mr. USA John Defendis' weight training partner at a period of time in his life. So I got to understand all those hypertrophy type sequences. I was around some of the best guys in the game, Muhammad Adair and those guys, Roger Stewart. And then when I got to college, I ended up meeting guys like Adam Furrow, Dave Pletto, Coach Van, uh, uh, Treadle. What ends up happening is like they started teaching me a little bit more about speed and strength because I felt like I got pretty big. I got to about 210 pounds as a player, but I was lacking that speed and that pop. So they really started teaching me a lot about elastic work as I was in the FSU system at that time. And then before I know it, like I went off into a professional career, was molded by quite a few other dudes. And what I realized along the way in my career, Adam, was that I really just really studied the physical side of it because I really needed to keep up with those other guys. Because it was just, you can say it's not fair, it's not this, it's not that, but who cares? They got blessed with 6'3". I wasn't, so I just did the work and the studying, and broadened myself and humbled myself by being able to go through multiple systems, unlearning and taking from them. At the end of my career, what I realized is I had a pretty bad injury with professional organization. I'm not going to say the name, just keep that quiet. And what I realized is that it was a lack of kind of attention to detail a little bit. So I just felt like coming out of the game that it was my job more to try to go back and help athletes and try to keep them healthy and successful per se with all the knowledge that I have taken in, because somewhere along the way I got pretty good. And then before I knew it, I started that process. And I continued to educate myself, from Rob Rogers, Stefan Underwood, to all sorts of people. And then currently, I'm kind of learning a lot about yoga and that movement and breathing and meditation, just because it's a different aspect for me. Like I'm really good at moving weights, moving dumbbells, like applying speed, applying power, like I can sprint you, all these other things really, really good. So like, what can I add a little different movement to this game now? And what's ended up happening is, man, since I guess after chasing it for 10 years as a professional, like now I'm in another journeyman game of a strength conditioning guy that goes around and, I've been at the UFC level, I've been at the baseball professional level, I've been at all sorts of levels already. And what I realized is, it's like I really don't know where I'm going after this. I'm just still doing what I love to do, and I'm passionate about it, still learning about it. And oh yeah, I guess that's all I can really tell you about me.
Hey, I'll take it. It does give kind of a broad background. Understand your athletic background. You studied under a ton of different people. That's one of the things I've appreciated getting to know about you is there's never been a point where you feel you know enough. It's you cover a topic, you move on, you're ready for the next one. There's always something to take from a different discipline, a different strategy of training, a different strategy of high performance. And I think that's very admirable. So with that, I think it kind of ties into a theme you touched on. You've gone to so many different places. You've participated in so many different styles of training, styles of sport, and in different locations around the US. Even some world travel. So what is this theme of being a journeyman? You tag it on your Instagram post. You mentioned it really quickly in your answer. I know that's kind of how you describe yourself.
So typically, a journeyman is someone, Adam, um, that kind of follows their passions and their hearts and things that they were probably told they were never going to amount to. They continue to just chase it anyways, and said, I'll just decide my own path with that. So from a baseball standpoint, I never wanted to be the most outstanding player. That's journeyman never really is. I just wanted to be well rounded and successful and try to help an organization win or the team win and do my job. So I just wanted to be that guy. So what that allowed me to do is kind of bounce in my career for about a good 8 to 10 years, just from team to team. And I did put up good numbers. I had a great time. It was a great run. It just didn't work out the way it really wanted to. But then that passion and love that I had for baseball took me into kind of the same field I was already in with the strength conditioning side. I just didn't know it yet. So like the journey then thus begun, and something that I really started with baseball, and now it's taking me here. And what ends up happening is I really don't know where I'm going. So like I couldn't tell you if I'm going to work here next year or there, here next month, because like let's say for this last year I was with the Tallahassee Community College. I went back to help Mac, one of my old coaches, for a year because he didn't have the best year the year before, and he said he wanted to kind of go out like a winner and asked if I could kind of handle the strength conditioning side. I said, well, I'll see what I can do, Mac. So the next thing I know, the journey took me to Tallahassee, which was good because I needed to go back to Tallahassee to revisit some folks and get acquainted with the education side again. So there's, the journey taking me back again that direction. And we did the job. It came out greatly. Next thing I know, I'm in Arizona and I'm working with the the San Diego Padres. And before I know it, like here I come in as an intern. The next thing I know, like I'm running the whole ACL team. So it's kind of pretty cool. So like I didn't know the journey was going to take me that direction. Kind of did. Um, and now here I am, somewhere in California, just kind of going that direction with it. So I think a journeyman is someone that just gives unconditionally to whatever it is they love and have passion for. And that means they're willing to give up a little bit more on this side of life and stability in those things because they just let the dream continue to happen. It's not a life for everybody. It's a very hard life. You find yourself in different places all the time. You pick up and go. Like, I typically only have like 3 bags with me. I don't really carry much stuff. When I got the call to the Padres, anything that was in that apartment, I left. So it was, it was just time to go. So there's no something, if I got a call for a fight camp, next thing I know, I'm in a different part of the state, a different part of the country, and I'm 6 weeks here. And next thing I know, I'm flying out to, go with top 10 fighters in the world. And I never knew any of that was going to happen. I didn't know anything was going to happen along the way, whether it be professional baseball or collegiate baseball. I just continued to work for that passion that I had, and it just kind of continued to take me that direction. So I think that's what a journeyman is. It's like everywhere you kind of take yourself, you try to leave a really good impact, do it the best you can. You don't have to stand out because it's not about you. It's your journeyman. You're just there to like be a part of it, and that's it. Like that's the goal of a journeyman. Like you just journeyman, journey lady, whichever one it is, or however they describe these days. But it's to me, it's just you're always trying to just do the best you can, and you really do it in a way that it's never about you. So,
yeah, I think it's a really unique response because being a journeyman is not a way I ever heard someone describe themselves, especially somebody who works at a high level of professional sports. For you, you've done it at the UFC, you've done it in pro baseball. I mean, for all I know, you're working with track athletes too. I know you could do that just fine. I know you've been all over the place, and you being open to new journeys or new opportunities has allowed you to go down those paths. And something I just learned in this interview here is I didn't quite realize that you adopted that moniker for yourself back when you were even playing, when you were competing, when you were breaking into professional baseball. So was it something that kind of sparked your mind when you were in college, when you were competing? What sparked that definition or that moniker that you wanted to go as the journeyman?
I just felt like every aspect of my life, I really had no idea where I was going, where I was going to be next year, the next one. Once I left high school, I was off like doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. So basically, I hung out with a lot of professional guys that played the game, and they said, like I got to play 10, 12 years and never really got whatever. And I saw how hard they worked. And they always said, it's like, well, I never want to be the best guy. I just want to be there to hang out with all the great guys. And that's what I realized, like along the way, man, I was playing with guys that were so good at him. Like I remember just playing first base sometimes and watching the other side of the infield do some things. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sharing a field with these guys. Like it's me. I'm not there. I'm not, it's not, so I'm not a superstar. Like those guys are the superstars. I'm just cool to kick it. Like I'm very happy to be here. Let me know whatever you need me to do. I got it. So I always knew that that's the goal of a journeyman. As a journeyman, you got to be able to pack up and go, because you're not set in stone. You're not. There's nothing that can really tie you down. You got to just be able to like roll. Wherever it takes you is where you got to go, and you follow it. And again, it's not the easiest life. It's a great life. I've had an amazing life. What I'm saying is I've got to share the field with some amazing guys. You know, win some championships, do some things, share some moments that I can't really describe from an athletic standpoint. And at that point in time, it's yeah. So I just knew I just wanted to be a part of the crowd and kind of go from there. So and also as a journeyman, you never really try to get an ego and say like you're the best. You just continue to always try to get better. So I
Hmm.
like it from a strength side because it lets me know that everything's good. That I'm continuing to educate myself. So that's how I like it. You know, it's like it keeps me humble. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm not, regardless of whatever I do or where I go, keeps me very humble, and I like that. So
Thank you. Even more impressive that you're able to rattle off that answer with your two dogs running their own UFC training camp behind you. I saw a little tug in the background. My
oh man,
my dog made a
they're
nest herself in the bed right here. She pulled all those
yeah,
covers down over the course of that last answer. So I'm right
yeah,
there with you, man.
your dog's being the good one. These two over here have their own. They're pretty. Man, it's hard to describe, but they're like a really cool tandem to watch. Just a little bit all over the place, but fun to watch.
Hey, I'll
So, but
take
yeah,
it. That's gonna be a funny little blooper clip I can pull. Just dogs going crazy in the background. It'll take some editing expertise, but we'll get
oh
there.
man, I like it. So,
Thank you. But I mean, one of the things that you touched on again was how you got into high performance. So it was really family influence from the beginning. You were around bodybuilding. You saw those principles from a young age, and then your path as a journeyman. What pulled you out of baseball and into ultimate fighting, into mixed martial arts? How did you jump that gap?
it's pretty interesting. There's a kid by the name of Rasad Bektik. They used to follow me around the YMCA when I exited my career. So I was just kind of working out there at the end, just kind of getting some workouts in, and he kind of just I describe it. He just I kind of one day just asked him, I was like, is there something like I can help you with? And he kind of told me, well, I'm going to be world champion. I was like, okay, I have no idea what you're going to be world champion at, but that's great. So he's like, and then he told me a little bit about the UFC, and it's stuff that I saw like as a kid, but I saw that there was like no weight divisions and those things. So I kind of fell away from it because it wasn't really professional organized at that time. And then I looked into it a little bit and I saw there's weight classes and all that, and that this guy came around. And so before I knew it, I went over to the mats with him one day, and one guy asked me what I knew about MMA. I said I don't know absolutely anything, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty relevant to professional sports. And I'm pretty sure if I have someone on me, my job is to kind of get them off me. I don't really have the skill set, but that takes a little bit of athleticism. And the next thing I know, I found myself on the mat with a 250-pound guy, and it took me about 4 seconds to like push him off me, and next thing you know, I was on top. And at that point in time, I think Mersad recognized that I might know a little bit about some strength conditioning and stuff, and we started the process. And he did pretty good. I think I don't know what his future is going to be like. We hung out for about 10 to 11 years. Got to we got up to the number 3-2 fight in the world, where we would have won that one. We're going into a title fight. He stepped away around 29. He's still got, still a lot of longevity there. I still keep in touch with Masad very much so, but that took me to Guido Canetti, like Bruno Canetti, Nico Price, and all these other guys before I know, like, it just opened a lot of doors. And then it took me into a little bit of jujitsu. So for me, for me to train those guys, I really had to understand the wear and tear of it, how you felt banged up, and how it kind of beat the body. Because if not, like, I'm guessing then, I'm guessing from afar, like, oh, what do I apply now to help this guy, because I really don't know what they're feeling. So humility as has it, I jumped in there and I got manhandled. Don't get me wrong, I've been manhandled ways by some UFC athletes that's insane, but it's allowed me to physically mature and develop, and just the education I received by being able to take care of those guys from the start of a fight camp all the way through the end of the fight, from a rehab component to a mobility component to a regeneration component, because you kind of act as both, a little bit of therapist and strength coach, where you're doing a lot of the prehabilitative body weight movements, into your warm-ups and those sequences. Because when you go throw guys around for 3 or 4 hours a day, you don't just wake up over 5 minutes sometimes and just be ready to go. So it taught me a little bit more about warm-ups. Realistically, it started real simple with a guy asking me some information. Next thing I know, I'm in some UFC gear, and I got I got pretty lucky. Like, I never knew it was going to happen. A lot of people told me it was a waste of my time to invest in those guys. They really did. They told me that, and I was just like, from an education standpoint, the UFC athlete is the most banged up athlete on the face of the earth, compared to probably a Navy SEAL. And at that point in time, like, it's very good for me to, like, really understand how to get these guys healthy and playing every single day. In short, Mersad's, like, interest in me ended up creating a pretty good relationship that ended up opening up a lot more doors for me. That brought me more different fighters, different types of fight camps, different types of athletes, different types of modalities I had to work with, different physical qualities and indifferences between athletes. In the fight game, you really have to understand how to physically manipulate the other guy's game. So to me, I would have to study the other fighter and see what they were physically good at, and see if I could go manipulate it. So, like, when a Nico Price fights a Tim Means, Tim Means is he's a very good boxer, and I know that Nico going into that fight is, he likes to just stand there and go. So a guy that can really box knows that your guy's going to get a little bit of a pounding. So what I did with the Nico Price fight is I try to, like, overload the calves a little bit to kind of stabilize him when he did get rocked a few times. So I took him to the beach a couple times. I kind of get those calves loaded a little heavy, and then I stretched him back out, sped him back up. And then what I did is I kind of overloaded a little bit more med ball stuff with the 4 pound, 6 pound med ball, not for weight loads, just for, like, fluid rhythm, to let its arm extend and take it away from, like, a fighting content where these guys want to throw and pull back because they got something coming at them. I was just teaching them just kind of let it go. And it kind of worked out a little bit pretty good, because in that fight, like, we got rocked. We definitely got rocked. Nico took a pounding, but the legs were just strong enough to stay stable where he could deliver one left hook and end the fight. So it worked out great. So, like, you got to study. So, like, when we fought Mirsad Bektic fought, like, Ricardo Lamas, I knew Lamas was going to grapple and try to wear down Mirsad's speed, because Mirsad's speed and power is absolutely insane on another level. Like, he can run through like a Mack truck. He's the type of guy that can grab a 120-pound dumbbell and row it like there's no tomorrow, and move it up and down in a way that you're like, this is a 155-pound dude. Like, wow, if that makes sense. I've had the pleasure of grappling with Mirsad. I'm telling you, this guy picks me up, and I'm close to a 190-pound guy at him, and he picks me up and puts me down in a way that I'm just like, whoa. So I knew in that fight that Lamas was going to try to wear us. So in the warm-ups, I did a lot of stuff to, like, pre-exhaust the arms a little bit, pre-exhaust them to handle a grappling bout. Then I went into the strength phase of it, and I used a little bit more agility and speed work to get more power out of him, because Lamas is a good fighter. He's not going to put himself in a position to get knocked out. And you knew it was going to be a grappling match. And also for us, is a grappling jiu-jitsu type coach, as being George St. Pierre's guy. So I knew for us was going to push a ground game. So that whole concept right there was different in Mirsad's fight, because we have to handle a little different physicality. So we have to handle more work, not so much speed, just continuous work, because that's what the fight was going. Whereas Nico's fight was going to be really fast, and Papa-Pet's going to be over in a second. So you weren't really prepping for that long duration, because the two guys aren't built for that. So, that type of stuff.
So you talked about how you manipulated training for different fights or different fight camps that you were working through. Now, skirting us back down to the baseball path, how is what you do from a strength and conditioning perspective, a high performance perspective, different in the baseball setting than what we commonly see?
I think first and foremost, I think we talk about a lot about like new generation of lifting and those types of things, but I mean, realistically, the way we're kind of taught, even from the certification aspect of the CSCS, is that we're going to do a lot of hypertrophy work, a lot of work, 8 reps, 10 reps, 12 reps, 6 reps, and we stay linear in these rep ranges and these movements. Okay, well that's great, but what that linear does is just a lot of hypertrophy, like so we get bigger and we get bigger. And I get that, but if we go back in time 20, 30 years ago, even 40 years ago, like the professional baseball athlete back then was a pretty physical, big dude. Like, and we didn't know much about weights, which tells you, like, when we're playing 140 games a year, or even a collegiate athlete that's getting to them close, that is a force and power and speed that we do consistently over 160. Let's think about it now. Add those days up with the practice, 200, 220 days a year of a type of training atmosphere that you can never replicate in a weight room ever. Never going to do it because it's game like speed. So over time, that athlete starts to get pretty big from that workload because they can regenerate. They don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to that. So if we can regenerate them from that and then pull them back and now start manipulating a little bit of the physical qualities they may be lacking, because we do need strength. We do need speed, we do need power, we need to be a great force, we need to be stable, we need to be durable, but we don't need to rush size, especially if we're going to have this guy around until he's 30, 35 years old. And second of all, if we had an 18-year-old kid that is currently, let's say, 5'11" and weighs 180 pounds, well, okay, well, let's now when we kind of morphologically grow and become man at 22, 23, that kid just from a game like setting alone, like you saw you with these guys from high school to the NBA or college to the NBA, once they hang out with these pro guys for 2 years and all they do is play basketball, these dudes go, boom. And like, well, that's interesting because the competition to development ratios flip where it's 70 to 80, 90% competition all the time, fight for a job. And we only got really 10% room for development, but we're still applying like development windows and strength conditioning that are more flipped on the opposite side. We have a developing athlete and we're not competing for a job. So where I differ a little bit is I like to tap in all the time, little by little, little by little. I never like the athlete to walk away from my programming, especially during the season, in a banged up manner. I like them to walk away feeling good, strong, healthy, ready to go win their money, win their job the next day, because that's what we're paid to do. We're paid to play. We're not paid to lift weights. We're so rushed to go put weight loads on these guys. Like, if I have a guy on the field from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. in a spring training setting, and okay, yeah, the sheet says here we're gonna have the Wednesday workout, but we're on the field now doing game like skill work setting. Like, guys, like you're talking about ground balls, hitting, throwing, conditioning, standing on your feet on top of the team warm up or whatever. And then we come the next day and we just, now we're immediately running into a 5 minute warm up. And now we're going into 3 sets of 5 on hex bar or barbell split squats. We're just rushing the weight load on a dude. Like, guys, like let's just take a little time, see where we're at with the dude. And from a strength conditioning side, it's our job to go a little bit left and right and not be set in stone. And that's the one thing I don't like is I think that's where the disconnect comes in from a strength conditioning side between the athlete and the strength coach is that you don't have to play the sport, but you got to have an understanding of what the sport does to you a little bit. So, if I go take 60 ground balls at game like speed with 2 phenomenal shortstop, second baseman, and I'm working double plays, that's 60 throws. That's agility movements in 10, 15 yards. If bam, 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 less than a second, you know this, Adam, like fast, fast, fast. And now, like, let's say if the skip wants us to run fly balls down the line, well, there's another 6 or 8, 10, like 50-yard down sprints, running balls behind our head. So as a strength conditioning coach, we need to adjust to the workload that's being presented because that's where they make their money. And we need to learn how to pick our spots a little better. But that's not, so me, I understand that I have a physical monster already blessed with me because guess what? If it wasn't a physical monster, he wouldn't be playing professional sports. So for me to go rush size and those things is something that's right around the corner. Why? Let's just go make sure it's durable. It can handle all the stress we give it. It continues to bounce back. It continues to bounce back. And now, if we continue to bounce back over time and we never see any setbacks, how good is someone over 2, 3, 4 years? Because we've never seen a setback. We just continue to go this way and we never rush to get there. We didn't, 6 weeks, we're going to go from here to here. Okay, well, yeah, like if I go from 6 weeks from here to here and I put 10 pounds of muscle on, That's great. But what does that 10 pounds of muscle do to the joints, to the overall wear and tear of the body, to the cardiovascular system? Yeah, you just put it on in 6 weeks, but do we even know how to handle it? Can we move through it? Can we take it? Can we go apply game like speed now every day over 3, 4 months with that new 10 pounds and not run into any issues? So, like, why not just be efficient in everything as we go pound to pound to pound over time? You're gonna have a pretty physical monster.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. And if you go to a professional setting from minor league to whatever, not all guys go like boom, boom. You know that, Adam. They're not rushed. They're going to bring these guys in at 17, 18. And we have till 22, 23, typically, until we kind of bring them up or shoot them up, especially if we're building them from the ground up. So yeah, that's a
Right.
5 year window to let a kid become a man. So what do we got to rush? Like we need a player to go play and get efficient in those skills and make them money, because then it becomes a better practice environment, a better skill environment, and then we pick our spots from a strength conditioning side to continue to develop over time. And then what ends up happening is you have a better practice speed, a better development setting, and the athlete continues to refine even more and more and more, because you got more guys that are consistently healthy, getting faster, getting stronger over time, not rushed. So you build a better system. So that's the thing, but it's tough in professional sports because there's money involved. You got to understand what the organization really wants to do. Do they want to trade these guys? Do they want to move them on quickly? Do they really want this guy in the big leagues? Yeah. But anyways, so I guess that's the difference with me, is that I take my time. I want longevity and durability in the athlete, and I understand that the goal is to we get paid to play. That's our job. Our job isn't to lift weights. Weights are a part of it. Mobility is a part of it. All this stuff's a part of it. But if we have a whole 10-month season, why not just continue to get better little by little instead of just rushing a 4 week, 5 week spring training overload and then, oh, okay, now good luck, guys.
Hmm.
There's got to be a little bit of where there's got to be a little give here, a little take there. And I think from a strength conditioning side, the thing that I do very different is I adapt on the daily. I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, but then what is presented to me after what I've seen from either gameplay or wear and tear the day before, what is presented to me on that day, like, immediately can alter my thinking a little bit. So I don't follow a linear path, and we're going to stay on this path and these are the exercises we're going to do. I follow more a linear rep range and qualities I'm trying to manipulate, whether it be speed or strength or power. I manipulate my movements, but I don't know when those days will happen unless the athlete presents to me like, oh, we're ready for some extra work. So I play it more that way.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate you expounding on every single piece of that. We got so much out of that answer that you just gave that you opened up a rabbit hole that I want to go down. So you talked about not rushing these guys. So much of what we see in professional baseball or even in college baseball is these very structured, set timelines that are short. We're chasing a stimulus over a shorter period. So what would the ideal be? Kind of what I'm gathering, or a cool thought that I think you could take a good approach on. I'm curious if this starts to work into your ideal, but would it be useful for you if you know the term of a contract on a player and you're building a structure or building a program throughout the length of that player's contract? So you have this giant macro cycle with little microcycles and mesocycles mixed in over the length of a 5 year minor league contract or a free agent that signs a 2 year deal. Would that help you?
It would help me greatly, first and foremost, because now we have a time period, we have a protocol. And at that standpoint, like, let's say if they do give me an athlete with a 3 or 4 year contract, first of all, I'm going to look back at the past track record, physicality wise, and I'm going to understand the athlete, what they do well. Are they strong? Are they fast? Are they mobile? What do they lack? What are they efficient? Do they have size? Do they have leverage? What do they do well? What are the things that we need to kind of address over time moving forward? Also, what do they like to do? Because if a guy likes to do cleans and certain things, we got to still make their program refined to them and the things they like to do. So you got to learn to manipulate that standpoint. And then from that standpoint, you got to kind of get in there with them in the trenches and start to guide and lead. And they got to understand that you can do it all with them. So that there's another aspect there. But yeah, so if I knew I had a timeline with a guy, if a guy has a 3 or 4 year gig and he has the option to free agency or re-sign at the end of year 3, 4, then I want to make sure like, okay, we got a year or two, like we want to consistently be good. Let's go address some things really quickly. And then I have like these benchmarks and these spots that I start to hit, and then I just start to add. And I start to add. And instead of making a guy really good with just a lunge, a forward lunge, okay, well, now we got really good here this way. Let's go with the reverse lunge. Let's go with a side lunge. Let's go with a lunge overhead. Let's go with a lunge right here. Let's go with a kettlebell. Let's offset. So then I start to manipulate planes a little bit more to make sure that as we continue to progress, we're there. And then realistically, Adam, the goal is to have a player that is consistently durable and healthy and has a great mindset on what they have to do daily to be healthy. And at that point, yeah, if you want to rush it now, we need to hit size. Like, okay, I want to trade this guy within a year. Then yeah, there are protocols where we can go rush the size building and the strength building to build him up to make him more obtainable size wise, if that makes sense. If you're trying to make him a little more physical and dirty, yeah, we can rush those systems. It's a little bit more progressive on a daily. We're not going to follow the consistent, so we're going to try to nitpick a little bit more daily, try to get a little bit more daily, so that way we have more continuous progression. Whereas a guy that I know that has 3 or 4 years, like I want to make sure that for every little like pound of muscle or any little ounce of strength or 5 pound weight increase, I want to make sure that the skill set works fluent with them. So that way we don't go backwards anywhere. Because okay, if I got a 3 or 4 year gig, I gotta make sure if I put 2 or 3 pounds on, I can still go to my right perfectly, still go to my left perfectly, I can still stay in my swing perfectly, I can still all these things. So as you go over time, that's what you got to make sure is that you don't lose a beat, never go backwards. And I think that's where the strength conditioning becomes second. Skill set is pushed first. Now, when we have a timeline of just 1 year and we got to pick out, now we might have to remove and bump up this physical side because we have to go put up real quick. So, how can we do that in a manner that gets the most out of it, but also keeps them in check because you don't want them to break. So that's where another fine line comes in: is how fast is too fast. And I think that's where everyone's a little bit different. But if it's, let's say if you got a Tommy John guy, and I know this guy's got a 5, 6, 7 year deal, and let's say he's making 25 million a year. Well, guys, let's give it that 9 months to a year, whatever you guys want to do. Give me a time frame, and then at that point in time, I'm going to try to manipulate daily on a way to figure out the things that got us to have Tommy John. So
Picking up where we left off. So Peachy, you took us through how you would structure programming for a healthy guy, right? So we're following this 2 year plan, 3 year plan, knowing whatever contract a guy might have and how you can build little by little and making sure they still have what they need on the field. They can still perform their sport first. But what about an injured guy? You mentioned Tommy John. That's what we're after here with Flex Pro Grip, really overall health of the elbow on down. But that's what plagues so many professional pitchers. So how does that alter your programming, or how do you change what you do when you see that coming in a facility or at the complex?
Yeah, so I mean, so going back real quick to the first one, so yeah, so for a guy that has 3 or 4 years, and to me, my job is to make sure that we get the most out of that guy 3 or 4 years, durable, and we also put that person in a position that at the end of those 3 or 4 years, they still have more in the gas tank. Well, so from for a guy that's more rushed for 1 year, then you gotta manipulate a little different. But I think from an overall standpoint, Adam, I don't think it's I think what strength coaches should be evaluated on, especially at a professional system or collegiate system, is the amount of healthy guys that they consistently produce over time that have gotten better. Not just, I don't want to know about the guy that you went and put 15, 20 pounds on over 6 weeks. I want to know about the guy that continuously stayed healthy over 4 or 5 years within your system, got better, avoided injury. And that guy, I want to understand how we did that, not just a quick rush on getting size. That's because realistically, we're spending money. If I'm going to go spend millions of dollars on someone, I need that person to perform. They can't be having hamstring issues, these issues, all because we think they just need to get bigger, faster, stronger. So we have to learn to manipulate from the strength side. So I was taking the calculation how the pitchers presented in that standpoint. And then I was studying programming and that was implemented over the years with the organization. And it was just a lot of workload. So and what I'm saying is, let's go back to this guy that's 6'5", like 300 pounds, and he throws 100 miles per hour. He's already presenting to you that he's probably got a physical quality of strength that's insane. He's 6'5", he's 300 pounds. You already know he's not the most mobile guy by the way he moves. You also know he's probably not the fastest guy. Two physical qualities that we can manipulate because the body does have speed, it has strength, it has agility, endurance, flexibility, mobility. So we can manipulate these qualities. Typically after puberty, like an increase of maybe 2 to 3% can be seen if we just focus on speed, agility, and that stuff. But the qualities we can manipulate are strength and endurance, but we can also really hammer the heck out of mobility because it's a daily thing. It doesn't beat us up. But strength, if we can learn how to manipulate strength in different ways, it's starting strength, reactive strength, explosive strength. What's the athlete missing? So back to the topic is if I have a 6'5" guy that throws 100 miles per hour, 300 pounds, why do we need to go get him bigger? So I think from a rehab component to Tommy John, first and foremost, what you have to do is you got to understand what the athlete's physical qualities are giving to you. What do they present to you? So if I take the current client per se, Carter G, Carter is a physically strong kid. He can squat 4 to 500 pounds without a problem. Probably deadlift, same thing. He can go sling a barbell and a clean. We don't even know. And he's just a big guy, 6'2". He's got, neck, shoulders. He weighs about 215, 217 pounds. Any given day can fluctuate. Give or take, his nutrition's still evolving, but he's only an 18-year-old kid. He's still a kid. So what I'm seeing is that, okay, strength, physical quality, great. Perfect. Mobility, we have a lack there. Flexibility, we definitely have a lack there. Speed, we do have speed, but we're so tight with the lack of mobility in those things that we can't really tap into speed right now in running type work because we got to lengthen them back out a little bit. So now we're starting to learn how to manipulate. Okay, how does the body move? Okay, we definitely have a deficiency with the feet. They can't grab the ground. They can't do this. And so I start to look at those things. I start to look at pass velocity, okay, 88, 89, I see that. I start to see, okay, we can't even curl a towel with our toes, which means that we really don't even grab the ground, can't even use the ground. So I know I don't have a size issue because you're a big kid. I definitely don't have a strength issue because, man, you can move 500 pounds. I do have a little bit of a speed issue, and I definitely got a flexibility mobility issue. And I got 9, 8 months, 10 months now to go manipulate that. Why we go tap in the strength, but we're not going to go tap in the strength when the time's ready, Adam, in a manner that's more just move a lot of weight. We're going to go move it in a way now where we might end up doing some pulls, some jumps, some dumbbell squat jumps, above knee clean pulls where it's just a jump shrug once we're ready to handle that, because we're going to look more for force production, speed, twitch. We're going to unload the athlete a little bit more linear, get him outside of that pitching regimen because he's been so focused on pitching for so long. It's so one-sided that we're going to go lengthen him out of that box. We're going to go move him differently because the qualities are presenting this to me. So I got all these qualities now that, okay, I can go tap it a little bit here, which should add to this strength overall. It's already stable. We definitely lack mobility, but let's make sure as we make it more mobile that it's strong and consistent weight load. So right now, currently I'm manipulating 5, 10 pound dumbbells, but I'm manipulating them in so many different ways with different mobility to make sure that he's durable there, stable in that phase. Not just I can move it in this manner. I'm good. Let's go to the next one. Let's add more weight. Oh, we're good here. Let's add more weight. Okay, well, yeah, because the body's kind of got used to doing this. You're not really stressing it from this angle, from that angle, from this angle. So basically, Carter learned in a manner where everything was being bypassed from the ground up, legs, feet, and such a strong kid that he can go throw a baseball at 89, 90 miles per hour without an issue just with his arm. And everybody's giving him advice the last 4 years, like, well, you can't get your legs going, you can't let your legs going. Okay, well, let's see, can the feet even grab the ground in a squat? Can we stay stable? And if you kind of saw a lot of the movements I've been doing at first in the beginning, was I was kind of messing with that equilibrium, pulling with the band, making sure we can attach to the ground in a split squat and a lunge, doing a lot of body weight mobility, tapping into things. I'm using more of my sprint work, athletic work to kind of pump the arm a little bit as I've been freed to get into weights. And today I know like December 6th, we're getting ready to kind of like throw a baseball right around then. So today I just kind of like had him do a little ballistic in here just to kind of see what that feels like, moving that kind of quicker, just body weight. And that's because I picked some brains from some other guys, and they said typically around 20 weeks we're going to do it a med ball. So to me, I want to be like more body weight. Can we handle a little bit here? These little, just simple little movements. So I want to see, is that okay? Like you even gave me some good advice with the pull. Like, hey, Peach, let's go move in the pull a little bit as we get the flex pro grip going. Because that way, let's see how we were stressing a little bit. So we took them in the pull and we started all these little things in the pull, body weight, just to move them. And I'm also teaching them in the pull, like, look, these are parts of like regeneration work. The one thing I'm doing with him to counter the lack of right-handed throwing, which is is I'm doing left-handed throwing. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
that for like harmony and rhythm, to kind of, if we did have some bad patterns on the right side, hopefully that non-dominant side can develop its own patterns. Um, Doing it in a way with football, baseball, and then what I do is, which I didn't really see with the professional organization, is we're 4 or 5 months in, like why not? Why can't we take ground balls with the glove? Why can't we move? Why can't we start to address the things that the athlete was missing? Because he was so focused on being a pitcher, like we forgot about being an athlete first. We're like, we don't know what's going to happen. Well, you can sign a professional contract at 18 only as a pitcher, and then one day you might be swinging in a cage, and they realize that you can hit the ball a mile. Next thing you know, you're a left fielder. Like you don't know what they're going to do. Well, you don't know what they're going to do with you. You don't know. It doesn't. You got guys that go from position guys to pitchers. You see it all the time. So your job is to be a well-rounded athlete and be able to adapt to what is thrown at you. But we get very one-sided in that manner, and some guys do find success being one-sided from an early age. It's not saying that we can't do that, but it's not saying that having both sides working correctly wouldn't be beneficial as well, even for those guys that started at an early age. So what I really try to do is just make sure that everything is working perfectly and the patterns I've presented throughout the weight load manipulation. I continue to make sure that as he progresses, that for every little pound or speed or everything, that he can handle that stress workload. Once I add a different weight load, like a 10 pound, I go play with it in 10 different ways with 10 different sequences to make sure it's stable and durable. That's following the regeneration protocol. And what I mean by that is, like, typically when we have a new adaptation or stress, the book will tell you like 7, 14, or 21 days the nervous system takes to kind of handle that stress, get excited about it, then kind of series of fatigue, it kind of bounces back. That's the regeneration. Then it bounces back. It's like, I'm ready for the workload, because it bounced back. So I'm playing that. So as I add that new poundage, that new weight load, okay, we're like, now we're going to go play for the next 7, 8 to 10 days with these things I've done, because we have to, because we don't know if you've handled it correctly yet. We don't know if you can handle it this way, this way, this way, in this manner. So we have to test it. So that builds work capacity, work endurance. So we're consistently, we're not building size because we're not playing with high 8, 10, 12 reps. We're keeping everything around 5 or 6, because the beauty of your device is you're covering a lot of that endurance work for me, that consistent tap, 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 tap. Like, you're covering a lot of the things that I don't really want to get into, because you're doing it for me. So therefore, I tie into your program very well. So that's another thing. So someone like Carter, again, presents to me a little bit lack of mobility. He can be a little bit hard headed. Don't get me wrong. What I mean by that is, he's still got that young bravado. Like, come on, coach, you saw me do 2 good reps. Yeah, but I asked you for 6. But that's saying. But every male, I think all athletes have that. But all in all, the kid is doing great. He's really keeping focus on the things that realistically, you know this well enough, that prehabilitative work is very boring work. Getting ready to go to work, not only from a mental side, but taking your time to go to work, is very boring because it's so gradual buildup. But you got to learn to do that every day, and you got to learn how to regenerate it at the end of a game every night, and that's what keeps guys around. There are some guys that are blessed by the hand of God. They can go do whatever they want, show up and go knock it out. But then there's everybody else. What I do with the athlete is I learn their modalities. I apply a little bit of physical literacy that Margaret Whitehead said. If we can't skip and do these things won't happen. And then I look at the physical qualities presented and not presented. And then I look at the time structure. And then at that point in time, I start to kind of pick my chessboard in pieces over time. And then when I hit qualities I want to hit, I stay linear with my rep ranges, but I do fluctuate with my patterns, even though I'm linear with my rep ranges. So if I want to do lunges for strength or whatever, I might do 4 lunges one day on a Monday, but maybe Thursday I'm doing side lunges. Maybe Sunday I'm doing barbell reverse lunges. Maybe I'm doing barbell split squat. I'm still staying in that 5 rep range in so many different planes. It's just developing that strength that I want with different pairings, of course. But that's how I play a little bit. So I try to take my time and make sure that the athlete is very efficient in every aspect and every plane, not just look good with size. But first and foremost, you got to understand what you got, what is being presented to you, what factors they present. Are they doing, weighted balls? Are they doing flex? Are they doing the flex program? Are they doing the device? Are they doing this? Are they doing bands? What is their workload? And then from my standpoint, once I understand that workload, can we help aid that workload in a way that's a little more beneficial, or is it pretty good? And we just kind of add a little bit as we go, because we don't need to change the system. They're already pretty good. If they don't know how to do anything by that time, I'm like, whoa, man, we're in trouble. But every player knows how to kind of do a little bit of something.
You crushed that answer. I think you knocked out five of my questions in one. So that totally works for me. I appreciate you jumping ahead. Hey, that's coordination right there. That's planning on ahead of time, talking about the script, talking about what we want to talk about. And next thing you know, you just stream of consciousness, crush it. So I appreciate that. But there is something I do want to touch on here. You mentioned it lightly, which is the integration of FlexPro Grip. So you used it, you were a part of integrating with the Padres out of the complex. You are now working alongside us. We're in tandem every dang day. We're talking about how we're adjusting what Carter's doing. We're talking about his training percentages. We talk about how you're adjusting programs, whether it's more mobility focused, whether it's more strength focused, whether it's more athleticism focused on your side. But we're even going to take a step back from that. First, I want you to give me your initial thoughts when we walk in with Flex Pro Grip and say, "Hey, Peachy, this is what we do. I'm really interested in getting to know how you might be able to incorporate this in your programs in the weight room."
Man, I'll be honest, as soon as you even mentioned it to me, the first thing that came to mind was just like grappling and jujitsu. And I was just like, wow, like because the grip, like when you grab someone, you can hold someone that's like protection. Like you can protect yourself. So like if I can grab onto something, hold them there, they might have a better skill set than me, but if I can just give myself a chance to just push off and manipulate and control that body wherever it's going because I have such good grip, that's how I started thinking. And then as you kind of you put me on the device, I was like, oh, okay. And then I went back and started playing with a baseball, and that's when I was just like, wow, it's a pretty amazing machine. Like because you're starting to address the things that we've always thought about with like rice buckets and like these little drills, and we don't know what's really being targeted because typically an athlete has some type of overuse. They typically will dominate one way, they'll rotate some way. So even though you're doing exercises that are supposed to be doing what they say they're supposed to do, sometimes you miss it because there's a
Mm-hmm.
there's an immobility issue. So even though we're doing all these finger things and all that, doesn't mean like all the right muscles are working. It just means maybe one part of it's working because you dominated it that way. So it's so that's the first thing I saw. I was like, okay, man, this really levels the playing field with the fingertips, gets everything involved. So then I started asking the pitchers a little bit of their guidance, and as they started getting to the workloads, and they're like, oh, they love it. And then I started seeing that we were pretty heavy on our end. So
Mm-hmm.
as workload was being progressed, I went and studied my end. I was like, man, we're really doing a lot of rows right now with dumbbells. We're doing a lot of just holding weight with the hands. When you know what, this device is covering a lot of that grip strength for us right now. So when I looked at that, and it was just happened to be fortunate, Adam, that at that point in time, things worked out where I was able to kind of take over the programming a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, I immediately started following the emails you were sending daily. I was like, okay, we got this guy, this guy, this guy. I started taking all those pictures at that point in time through kind of very individualized programs, which is a little bit unorthodox for a professional organization because typically they just go to a computer screen, it's printed out. The only difference is they were going to computer screen now, and everybody was slightly different. Because all my programs, because everybody had different little things, and after being around those players, I could see what they were lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So then at that point in time, not lacking or what they weren't doing per se or what they like to do all the time, so they may have been missing something. So I just try to play that way. So then when I saw the overload with the dumbbells, understanding the device, I backed off and went a little bit more with pulleys, so that we could still get that row work in, add a little bit more jumping work, more speed power work because you were tapping into the. And at that point in time, I did more like grip type stuff where it was like a TRX row, those types of things, handling grip, like we were opening, we were still working grip and working that size and strength we wanted, but I was just picking different spots a little bit. So if we hex bar squatted that day, I wasn't going to pair it with a row, if that made sense. I'd pair it more with a jump because the hex bar deadlift alone was all I needed in that 5 pound load to kind of get that physical quality of strength. I didn't need to go tax it because the workload was already being taxed here. So that's what the device really did for me. It lets me know that I can see data. I can come back to you and be like, okay, what's he look like right now? And if I see that there's progression and consistency, it lets me go manipulate on my end a little bit. Okay, now we can come back and pull the dumbbell in. Okay, we can come back and pull this kettlebell in. It's like with you with Carter, as soon as we knew like we were going to get into that progression at 30%, like, okay, it's like, well, you know what? We got a good workload coming. I know it's going to work. And so we're going to kind of back off on my end for the next 10, 12 days, 14 days. And we're going to start getting used to that work, those things that we have to do. And then I'm going to add a little bit on my end to make sure we still have that stress into the nervous system and removing it. But I want to make sure like we're handling the stress of the device. And then once we get that handle of the stress of the device, I can come back on my end now and start to work with the device and the progressions, because now I know everything's right there equal. Where before, when it was first going, like it didn't matter if the device was used that day, like we were still going to go grab 10,000 pounds that day with weight loads, and it didn't matter because that's what the program said. So there was no adjustment on that end. So, okay, well, like now we got this amazing piece of technology. And like, look, the beauty of the old and the new is that there's a middle that applies to it. And to say only this way works and that this way doesn't work, or for anyone to say that there's only one way to do something, and that, like, it's kind of like, these guys are really providing amazing machinery for an injury that's really like prevalent. Like, and there's something wrong because nobody's fixing it. So let's be honest. It's like it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And we keep pitching bans and jobs, and so like you actually have a device that lets us know where the athlete's at on a given day, which is insane because we never had that before. So from my end as a strength conditioning coach, I now have data that I can go not only like, with the Hawkins system and all those jump plates and force plates and those things, but now you're giving me a device that lets me know how the arms feel. Regardless of what he's telling me, like I can see like what he's doing, which is data that I need, because as a strength conditioning guy, if I have a multi-million-dollar contract here, I need to make sure I know what's going on with this guy every day, not just something I wrote up 2 workouts and say, here you go for the next month. No, that's not my job. Is to understand what this player has to be at every day, what they perform like every day, and I need data, and I need to study them every day. So the problem with my job is, which makes it a pain in the ass, I hate to say this, is that when you go to work, you don't just sit there and chill. Like you're evaluating every single movement in your players. Like, do they look a little slower? Do they look a little this? Do they look a little fatigued? Do they look like their head's somewhere else? Because you got to learn how to kind of manipulate that a little bit. Like, okay, what's going on? Do they need a down day? Do you need to go back and rethink your program? Was the workload a little bit more? Was there a percentage increase in flex program? You see where I'm going? Did we add some new med ball throws? So the device was an amazing piece to let us know what the arm felt like, pitchers doing what they had to do. And it worked out greatly. And it just took a little bit of me understanding the device and learning how to apply what I do well, and then tying back into it. So that's why I absolutely love it. It's an amazing piece of machinery. It's just, for things to work beautifully, like, there's got to be that flow like this. I think I was really happy to kind of run into you, man. It was great because it just got me a little bit smarter, and it just taught me that you make my job easier, because I know
Thank
like I'm
you.
not guessing any. Like, does that make sense? Like, there's no more guessing work because you're showing it to me. So like, there's no more like, oh, look at him, he put on 10 pounds. Yeah, but it doesn't mean he's flexing grip and shit for shit. Pardon my language. Like, your device like, yeah, he's 10 pounds bigger, but what does that mean? That doesn't mean it
Right.
applies to anything. So now like we can see it, which is key. And as the strength conditioning guy that is in charge of handling guys that get paid a lot of money, or people that pay us a lot of money to rehab them and regenerate them, like we need to understand this data, because if not, you're kind of like guessing in the dark. And it's always kind of a little of a guesswork anyways, but we can't be in the dark. We got to kind of be in the light. So that's why I
Right.
love the device.
Well, hey, thank you so much for that. Appreciate any compliment. And I go into modest mode and I start looking down. But no, it means the world. And we couldn't have gotten to this point without people like you, as well as the feedback you've given us. But beyond that, your relationship with athletes, being able to have the tough conversations of where do we need to step up? Where do we need to improve? And having those discussions about user experience, not just what they're seeing while they're exercising on the device, or they're in a program, or they're looking at their app screen, looking at their data, but it's actually what are they feeling, and how is that feeling being translated back to the field. And with that, it kind of leaves us for one more question. So we talk about how we've taken your programming, we've taken Flex Pro Grip, applied it together, and we've gotten these great outputs on the field. Guys improved. When we look at some of the athletes we were able to touch in the Arizona Complex League, especially from the pitcher perspective, at least that's where I was involved. You were across the board. I just kind of stuck to the pitchers. We saw dramatic increases in the metrics that are used to evaluate performance. And that's props to the pitching coaches that were in there with us. Synergistically, we had a great thing rocking. So now you and I are working with Carter. Where do you think he can go with your programming, the combination of Flex Pro grip, just to round this out in a few minutes? What do you think Carter can accomplish?
I think Carter's physically blessed with a lot of size. He comes from a great genetic background. Mom, dad, professional golfers, at the highest level, U.S. Open type stuff. So he comes from a great genetic endowment per se, and the kid really is a workhorse. He truly is a workhorse. He just, like all young males and males in general, I think, or just people. I don't even know. I can't say it for anything else, but typically they think size is always the greatest thing ever, and they fail to realize sometimes that they might already be pretty big. So Carter, if he can just address the things that he has to address right now and continue to slightly improve on the gains that he's had and just see it over time. Heck, I mean, just getting a 2 to 3% increase from just overall body usage, Adam, I don't even know what that's going to relate to just overall velocity. The fact that your device is in play to make sure that there are no weak spots or foundations missed along the way, it makes it. I think he has a very bright future. I think the spin rate on the breaking ball is going to go up galore. I think if he learns to kind of breathe and work on those things to allow that whole body to work with that arm strength and size and not tense up, which he's been doing, and just let it flow, like I think he's going to do some amazing things on the field. And Carter has a closer like mentality, regardless of what I mean by that, whether it's collegiate or professional baseball. But in high school, like he's one of those guys that you put him in a situation and he just, for some reason, likes to just go to work. And not everybody has that from a mental standpoint, which is like they bring you in these where you're not, you're hoping to get 2 or 3 outs and give up 3 runs, where the kid will just come in and just shut it down. He's got a breaking ball with a it reminds me of a Daryl Kyle type break, that boom boom. Used to play with the St. Louis Cardinals back in the day. I think he had the tragedy, with
Mm-hmm.
the whatever he did, whatever happened. But just a phenomenal breaking ball, a guy that was 90 to 92, 93. And I still think we're in a game today that you see at a time, like if you have 1 or 2 plus pitches and you know how to like put that stuff everywhere, like 1 plus pitch in a breaking ball, and then you add a couple miles per hour to the fastball, and you're on a whole different level because you have such a plus pitch in that breaking ball, which makes the fastball so much more aggressive, so much more violent to the hitter because the breaking ball is so damn good. It's like a guy that has a very, very insane type changeup. So like, okay, he might be a 91 to 94 guy, but he's got a changeup that just breaks and falls off the table that replicates that fastball so much that when he does come 91, 94, it's on the hitter like 97, 100. So it doesn't matter. So that's what I'm saying. Carter has a 12-6 hammer that is pretty insane. And he was doing that just throwing all arm. And let's be honest, like that's what it is. Like when you got a kid that can't do a squat without feet coming off the ground, you can't like hug a towel with his toes, like that's all arm. So when you got every pitching coach in America telling them like, oh, we got to get our legs into it, we got to get our legs into it, well, we got to make sure they work. So I think he's about to do some amazing things. Is he going to stay humble and patient? These are things that you and I cannot control. This, but I think being humble and being patient and understanding that it's going to take a little time and consistency. And I think he's gonna be a steal for anybody who gives this kid a chance. That from a professional level to a collegiate level, he's going to be a steal.
Well, Peachy, thank you so much. We covered a ton here. I really do appreciate you doing the lion's share of the talking, because this is about you. It's about highlighting all the members we have of our team, and the people that are tuning in, watching this, listening to what we're doing. They hear from me all the time. They get a lot less from you. They get a lot less from Carter. And we wouldn't be in this position today if it wasn't for you. So again, I just want to express my gratitude and you kind of taking over, you sharing how passionate you are about this, how passionate you are about working with all athletes, and especially this journey we're on now with Carter. So again, thank you for this. You took a ton of time out of your day and you really didn't have to. So on behalf of the Flex Pro Grip team, thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. And hey, all you listeners, viewers at home, of course, you know how to get in touch with Flex Pro Grip. Pichi, is there a way that people can get in touch with you?
I mean, if you really need to get a hold of me, all you can do is just direct message me through Instagram. I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't really post much. I do stories. But yeah, so I'm pretty simple fellow to get a hold of if you need to get a hold of me.
Great. So people, you'll see us with Peachy tagged in this video. We repost his stuff, he reposts our stuff. We're one big happy family, just trying to get Carter as good as he can possibly be. As you know, this is Carter, it's his road to recovery, and we're just happy to be players in the mix. So again, all of you tuning in, thank you. And until next time, this has been Adam Morrow with Flex Pro Grip on Carter G's Road to Recovery.